Simple Jack, yeah, you went all out on that one, huh? You did. Really swung for the fences, huh?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, yeah. Yeah, it was an intense experience. You know, I just did the work. Watched a lot of retarded people. Spent time with them, observed them. Watched all the retarded stuff they did. But, you know, there were times when I was doing Jack that I actually felt retarded, like really retarded.
Dang.
In a weird way, I had to sort of just free myself up to believe that it was okay to be stupid or dumb.
To be a moron.
Yeah.
To be moronical.
Exactly. To be a moron.
An imbecile.
Yeah.
Not the dumbest that ever lived. Stupid Jack.
By the end of the whole thing, I was like, wait a minute, you know? I flushed so much out, how am I gonna jumpstart it up again? It's just like...
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
You was farting in bathtubs and laughing you off.
Yeah. I mean, it was just really it was crazy.
It's like working with mercury. You're serious? You don't know. Everybody knows you never go full retard.
What do you mean?
You went full retard, man. Never go full retard.
Okay, so last year I got tired of Portland, right? Too much crime, bullshit going on. It's crazy out in the streets. So I decided I'm going to move to Arlington, Texas. Well, not exactly Arlington, but it's the closest major city. I'm about 90 miles west of Arlington. I buy myself a nice plot of land, 115 acres. Now, my family begged me not to leave. They gave me every reason not to go. Texas, the people are crazy. They're racist. It's a Republican state. Blah, 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 blah. But after being here for over a year, I can confidently tell you, up until the point that this happened, my relationship with my neighbors was great. I loved being in my house. Everything was fine with the exception of these events. About a month after I move in, I start seeing things. Now, let me explain something to you. I have grown up in the city my entire life. I have never, ever, ever been in the woods. I have never been around deers or rabbits or any actual wildlife. So I'm seeing things, but I'm not sure exactly what I'm seeing. Now, to be more specific, I see these dogs. I mean huge black dogs running across the backside of my property that kind of look like Doberman pinchers, but they're way too freaking big. Now, naturally, when you're confused about something like this and you're new to the area, you head on over to your neighbors and you start asking them questions. So I head on over, knock on the door. Hey, neighbor, I've been seeing these big old dogs running around in the woods. Have you ever seen anything like this? He says, yeah, they come through every now and then. Just leave them alone. It's nothing but big dogs. Everything will be fine. So I'm saying to myself, everything is fine, right? Wrong. A couple of days later, I'm outside. The sun is going down, and one of these things darts out, running super fast about 75 yards away from me. I get a close look at it, and yes, it looks like a dog. The only exception is it has this super long snout, and its head is huge. So now I find myself online trying to figure out what the hell this is, and I go to Facebook groups, and then I go to Reddit groups, and I learn about cryptids. And finally, I stumble across what people are calling the Dogman. Now I'm up in the middle of the night posting on Reddit and on Facebook, asking questions. Simple stuff like, what are they? What do they do? Can you kill them? What happens if you shoot them? Now, initially, the people in the groups across the board kind of shunned me. On Reddit, they gave me all these downvotes. On some of those Facebook groups, the people are just absolutely toxic, right? But finally, one day, this guy starts answering my questions. The conversation moves from Reddit to email. We go back and forth on email for about a month and a half, and the next thing you know, we're talking on the phone. And he starts to give me more and more information about Dogman. Now, please understand, I know he's a stranger, but we talked on the phone quite a bit. And I kind of got to trusting the guy. The next thing I know, people in the group are starting to respond to me a whole hell of a lot. And now I'm starting to get emails from random people. It escalates, and now I'm getting phone calls from people asking me about Dogman. One evening, I'm riding home from work, and this guy calls me and offers to pay me $2,000 to come on my property and hunt Dogman. Listen to me. Now, I saw these things with my own two eyes. And yes, I'm not a woodsman. I'm new to owning property like this. But I got common sense, and I realized that as fast as that thing was moving and as big as it was, hunting it is a terrible idea. So I tell him, sir, I appreciate your offer, but I'm not interested in hunting these creatures. They've done absolutely nothing to me. It seems as if they're literally just crossing over my property and going about their business. I would prefer to keep it that way. This guy gets angry and hangs up the phone. An hour later, the original guy that I had been talking to calls me, and he's trying to convince me to let this gentleman come to my property. And I'm telling him, no, I don't want anybody here. Let's just leave it alone. It's all good. I don't want anybody on my property. He presses me over and over and over again, looping me, asking me the same question. Now, I'm explaining myself to him, trying to get the hell off the phone. And I said, listen, bro, I got to go out of town tomorrow. I'm packing my bag. Nobody's coming to my property to hunt anything. And if you keep on pressing me about this shit, you and I are going to stop talking. The next day, I board a plane, headed to Portland to visit my mom for a week. I'm there for 2 days when my phone rings about 7 o'clock in the evening, and it's my neighbor, and he's pissed. He says, hey, I hear a whole hell of a lot of shooting down there over on your property. Are you okay? I go on to explain to my neighbor that I'm not at home and nobody should be on my property with a firearm, and I tell him to call the sheriff. He and I hang up the phone, and I expect that this situation is going to resolve itself. But that's where I was freaking wrong. Because upon my arrival back home, I'm driving down the road, headed to my house, my neighbor's house, and I see him barreling down his driveway in his F-250 like a bat out of hell. He comes up behind me, blowing the horn, pulls up next to me, cuts me off, hops out of his car with an old rusty revolver, screaming, eyes buck wide open, and says, what the is wrong with you? Now, pause for a second. I need you to understand at this point in time, I'm completely ignorant. I do not know what is going on. Picture the scene. I am boxed in on the road. He is out of the car, beating on my window with that rusty old revolver, and it's like, get your out of the car. I roll down the window and I'm like, yo, what's going on? What's the problem? He says, who is that you have on your property? They have been over there shooting in the woods for the past 3 days. My sons were in the woods hunting, and these son of a were shooting. Enough for one of them to shoot and kill one of my children. Listen to me. He now has me at gunpoint, tells me to get out of the vehicle, sit down on the ground on my hands, pulls out his cell phone, and calls the sheriff. A few moments later, the sheriff pulls up. Now, I go on to express to the sheriff that I'm just arriving back in town, and my neighbor has pulled out of his driveway, pulled a weapon on me, and has threatened my life. For what reason, I do not know. But the sheriff looks at me and says, so you mean to tell me you didn't know that someone was on your property over the past couple of days shooting in the woods? You didn't give anyone permission to be on your property. I tell him, listen, I have been out of town. I did not give anyone permission to go on my property and hunt. At this point in time, my neighbor barges into the conversation saying, that's some bullshit. You know, both of us went over to that house, knocked on that door, and those people in that house told us that he leased the house to them for a week so that they can hunt his land. Now, listen to me. At this point in time, I'm standing there, and I know I'm looking at these two like they got four heads, because I did not tell anybody that they could go on my property, nor did I let anybody stay at my damn house. And I verbalized this to them. I don't know what the y'all talking about, but I did not give anybody permission to go in my house. I damn sure didn't give anybody permission to hunt on my land. So you are telling me that some people broke into my house. So I get off a plane, you cut me off in the middle of the road, pull a gun on me, and now you reveal to me that someone has broken into my house and went on my land and decided they're going to hunt. That is what's going on. The sheriff barges back in and says, well, I walked around your house and I saw no signs of forced entry. Listen to me. At this point in time, I'm losing. I'm saying, let's all go to the house because guess what? I didn't tell anybody they had permission to be at my house. And I guarantee you, somebody broke into my house. So we all proceed up the road to the house. Now listen, when I hit the driveway, I know some shit done went down because the pot that I kept on the left side of my front door where I kept the spare key has been shifted and moved. We all get out, walk up to the front door, walk around the house, inspect all the windows, the back door, the side door, and nothing is out of place. But listen to me when I tell you, I have a severe case of OCD and I keep things in order. I know that that flower pot was moved, and that's when it hit me. That son of a that I had been talking on the phone with, it all came flooding into my mind. I remember one evening being on the phone with him as I'm leaving the house. Now, I get distracted talking to this son of a. Somehow I lock my keys in the car. And I remember saying to him, thank God for spare keys, because if not, I wouldn't be able to get back into my damn house. Now, listen to this. When we finally go inside of the house, remember, I told you I got OCD. I can clearly tell from the minute I opened the door that not only was one person there, but about 4, 5 people had been in my damn house. How do I know? The chairs at the living room table had been shifted. In the kitchen, there was a freaking orange juice carton on the counter. I don't do shit like that. My sofa and love seat had been set on. My remotes had been moved. There were towels on the floor in the bathroom. I'm walking around the house with him and the sheriff having a conniption fit because somebody has been in my house. And the worst part of it all is neither one of them believe me. They are utterly convinced that I let someone lease my house for the week. The sheriff proceeds to tell me that he knocked on the door and the man opened. He describes the man and he says that he pulled out a piece of paper that showed a short-term rental lease for the week and the rights to hunt on the property. Now listen to me when I tell you, I'm not like a thug or a gangster. I'm not hard. I'm not even violent. But when I tell you in that moment, I wanted to lob a bomb and blow up somebody. I wanted to kill them. Because again, the sheriff and my neighbor are in the house insisting that I did this. So I try to calm down and explain to the sheriff what I believe happened. As I'm talking to him, he cuts me off and says, hold on. So you're trying to tell me that you met a guy on the internet. Then you emailed him. Then you gave him your phone number. Then you talked to him on the phone, a stranger. And then you told this stranger that you had a spare key. And then you told the same stranger that you were going out of town. Now, of course, if you listen to the story, you done figured out I did some retarded shit. But you got to be in a moment with me as all of this is going down. Because I'm coming to the realization as the sheriff is insulting me and my neighbor is shaking his head that these done been up in my house. The sheriff says, look, it's either one or two things going on. Either you are a lying son of a, or you got to be a 100% Forrest Gump retard. Either way it goes, neither one of those are good options. So here's what we're going to do. We about to get up out of your house and let you figure out what the hell is going on. But I want you to know something. If I hear one more gunshot over here, your ass is going to jail. And you're going to go to jail for a long time. You understand? Then they turn around, walk out of the house, and leave me standing there alone. Now, I'm sure you're listening to the story and saying to yourself, well, I don't get it. What's the point of the story? I thought it was supposed to be about Dogman. The story is about Dogman. And it's about the crazy that I found trying to find answers to Dogman and how them crazy sons have broke into my house. And now I got Dogmen, walking wolves, walking up to my back door, looking through my doors and my windows. So yeah, this story's about Dogman. Now listen to this. 2 days later, I head over to my neighbor's house. He's not at home, but his teenage sons and his wife are. And I'm apologizing for the whole situation, right? And on top of that, I'm trying to get more information about who was on the property. His wife looks at me with pity in her eyes and says, listen, I know what you're trying to do, but I'm not going to allow you to interrogate my sons without my husband being around. So the best piece of advice I have for you is to wait for him to get home, and I'll send him up the road to see you. 4 hours later, I'm sitting out on the porch smoking a pipe, and up rose my neighbor. And the first words out of my mouth, peace, Lonnie, I don't have no issues with you. I just need to talk about what's going on. I swear to God, I did not let anybody stay at my house and hunt my lands, and I would never want anyone to hurt or harm your sons. Lonnie looks at me over the hood of his truck and says, you know what? That's what my wife just told me. She says, you ain't the type of guy to have random people just running around in your house. My wife likes to call you a metrosexual, saying you way too neat for a man, but you're not gay either. So in her mind, there's no way you just let strangers into your house. Now listen, I didn't know how to take that, but at the same time, I'm not trying to have a conflict with him either. So I just let it go. And that's when Lonnie lays the real deal on me. He says, listen, people who broke in your house, that ain't the problem you got. The real problem you got on your hands is this. I was in them woods walking around, and I found blood, lots of blood. So either one of those guys shot themselves, or worse, they done hit one of these animals. And that ain't good for you at all, because that means they left their scent in the woods and they can track it back to your house. The look on this man's face was serious, and I mean serious, like a doctor telling you that you got cancer. He goes on to say, listen, if I was you, I would do everything in my power to get their scent out of my house. I mean clean, scrub, wash, throw stuff away if you have to, but you need to get the scent of those men out of your house. Because if not, you're going to have a huge problem on your hands real soon. Then he hops back in his truck saying, look, I'm right up the road if you need me. I got guns, I got ammunition, I got everything you could want. I want you to call me if you have any trouble. But to be clear with you, shooting these things has got to be your last option. Your first option is cleaning out the scent so they understand that it was somebody else and it wasn't you. Now look, as he drove away, I couldn't shake the look that was on his face. It kind of haunted me. He was looking at me like he was taking one final look upon my face. Like somewhere deep down inside, in the back of his mind, he knew that he might not ever see me again. Sure enough, 2 days later, I saw him and his family packing up the truck. When I asked where they're headed, he says, we're going down to Florida for a few weeks to visit family. Now get this, his two sons are sitting in the back seat, shaking their heads at me. His wife has this look of pity on her face. So now I'm starting to get scared because they clearly know something, but they're not telling me anything. So I said, Lonnie, look, man, please tell me what's going on. Why are you guys leaving? I got this bad feeling. Tell me what's up, Lonnie. He looks and says, everything ought to be fine, man. We just headed out for vacation. And pretty much right there is when I realized, okay, not only are these creatures definitely going to come back, but I'm going to have to deal with this shit on my own. So I head on down to the gun store, looking to purchase a shotgun. When I get inside, I ask the clerk, I say, hey, if you wanted to protect yourself from a home invader, what would you use? Naturally, he tells me to get a shotgun, and he gives me some regular shotgun ammunition. I tell him, what if I wanted to guarantee in one shot that I was able to put this person down? He reaches in a drawer and hands me some 12-gauge slugs. Now tell him, what if I was outside and I got some wild animals on my property and I don't want to kill them, but I want to run them off? The sales clerk starts fumbling around in the drawer and says, well, if I'm dealing with some wild animals and I don't want to kill them, I would probably use some dragon's breath, but we don't really have any dragon's breath rounds. I think I got one of them in here left, and one ain't going to do you no good. But I insisted, he relented, and so I walk out of there with the shotgun, the regular shells, the slugs, and one dragon's breath round. Now all is quiet for a solid week. Not a sound outside at night other than crickets. Sunday night rolls around, I'm in the shower, and I hear this roar. Straight sounded like Godzilla was outside of my house, and Godzilla was pissed off. But I had planned for this eventuality. Now, it might not have been the best plan in the world, but at least I had a plan. You see, upstairs in my house, there was a sunroom. It provided a 360-degree view around the property. In fact, I bought this house because I was going to convert that sunroom into a smoking lounge where I smoke my pipes. So now I'm springing into action, hopping out of the shower, putting my drawers on, grabbing my shotgun, clicking off all the lights inside, turning on all the floodlights outside, heading up the steps to the sunroom where I'm positioned, looking around with my shotgun. 20 minutes later, and I don't see anything. 30 minutes later, I still don't see anything. Now, thoughts are kind of bouncing around inside my head. Okay, am I freaking hearing things? Maybe I'm tripping and I'm afraid. So the adrenaline is leaving my body. I'm starting to calm down. So I said, look, I'm just going to chill up here for a minute, take a look and see what's going on. I light one of my pipes and take a puff. Smoke begins to fill that small room to the point to where I can barely breathe. So I head on over and open one of the windows. And that's when I first hear it. There is something gently, very gently walking around the outside of my house. And because of my vantage up high up in the air, I cannot see it. All I can see is the edges of the roof. Now, of course, you're saying to yourself, well, how the hell does he know it's something gently walking around his house? Let me explain it to you. Because I hear it sniffing. I know what it sounds like when a dog sniffs, and this sounds like the largest freaking dog on the planet is outside of my house sniffing around. Now listen to me. I don't know if it was because I opened that window and the pipe smoke began to leave out, but what I do know is within 7 seconds of me opening that window, I watched a dogman, yes, a dogman, walk on two legs out into the front lawn of my house, turn and look directly up at me. Now, let me paint the picture for you again because some people may not understand. It walked on two legs out into the light to make sure that I can see it. And listen, I will accurately describe this to you. It was not mangy at all. It had short hairs. It had very, very long ears. One eye reflected an amberish yellow color from the lights. The other eye reflected this amber and red color from the lights. Understand, this creature locks eyes with me through the floodlights and shows me its teeth. Now listen to me. I've heard a lot of stuff about Dogman and how they have these mystical, magical properties. I don't know nothing about none of that. What I can tell you is what I saw and what I know. The impression that it gave me was that this creature was saying to me, just because you're way up there does not mean that you're safe. And I'm going to prove to you that being up high means absolutely nothing to me. Listen to me. It does a two-step. Right foot, left foot. Takes off running. Leaps into the air. I am standing there watching this animal fly up to my roof. My pipe is now falling out of my mouth. And I'm saying out loud, good Lord Jesus, help me. It lands on a roof and begins to climb its way up to me until its face is pressed against the window, which is cracked open. Now listen to me. Look, I want to be clear with you. I have the shotgun in my hand. Its face is pressed against the window. It looks me directly in the eyes, then looks down at the shotgun, making me understand that it knew exactly what it was. And I realized right then and there that if I even decided to point this weapon at this creature, it was going to me up. So guess what I did? I stood there, eyes locked on its eyes, as it sniffed and sniffed and sniffed again, looking directly at me. Now listen, there is no way to do justice to the size of this creature, and I will try my best to explain it to you like this. Up close, right there in your face, those eyes are freaking huge. I'm talking about take your iPhone, saw it in half, hold the right side up, the left side up, put a yellow eyeball in that space with a black pupil, And that's how freaking big the eyes were. In fact, its eyes were so big and massive, it made it hard for me to look at anything else. Now, I will admit to you, I can't tell you how long I stood there looking into this creature's eyes, watching his eyes dart around the room, and watching his nose sniff the air. Now, what I do know is this: once it gathered whatever information it was looking for, it quickly turned its head to the right, then whipped it back to the left, head-butting my window, putting a crack in it, growled at me, and then jumped off the roof. I'm standing there saying to myself, "You're okay, you're okay, you're okay, you're okay, you're okay." Honestly, I wasn't. 5 minutes later, I realized I had pissed myself. And I'm not talking about like, you use the bathroom and you hurry up and put your penis back into your pants and you got a little drippage, guys. You know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about straight up peed all over the floor. And then the worst thing about it all was I was too afraid to even go downstairs and get anything to clean the piss up with. So I slept up there on this little bitty chair with the piss stains all over the floor. Get this, the next day I called the sheriff. The same sheriff deputy comes out. I explained to him what I saw. He sees the missing shingles on my roof, and he says, "Earlier when we talked in your house, I tried to explain to you that you're going to need to learn how to respect your neighbors. You have to think and consider them with some of the decisions that you make." And I said, "Yes, sir. I have been very considerate of my neighbor. In fact, I spoke to Lonnie the other day, and I think he and I are on good terms." And he goes on to say to me, "Well, Lonnie is not the only neighbor you have around here. These creatures are your neighbors as well. And from what you're telling me, you pissed off one of your neighbors. He came over just to check and see what was going on. And when he realized that it wasn't you, he sent you a little message letting you know not to with him." He goes on to hammer the point home. Consider this whole situation nothing but a warning. And that's what it was, because if it wanted to take you, nobody could have stopped it from taking you. It came over to sniff around, find out what was going on, and it was just telling you, "Don't with me, I won't with you. But if you with me, I'll be back." Now listen to me, that's pretty much the end of my story and what happened. But guess what I learned? That nobody tells you in any of these interviews or any of these little stupid stories out here. Once Dogman starts warning you, he never stops. Because there's mornings where I wake up and there's piss everywhere. There's other times while I'm in the kitchen cooking and I see the ears and snout in the window. For me, this ain't being warned. This is being terrorized. Yes, it could come in the house and get me if it wanted to. And I could deal with it breaking in the house. But just being in limbo, having to worry about if it's going to pop up while I'm taking a shit, or if it's going to pop up while I got a girl over, or if it's going to pop up while I'm outside in the backyard grilling, that's not cool, man. That's being terrorized.